Good morning, or good afternoon, good night, good evening. Like yesterday, wherever you are on the world, welcome to our 3D Cloudcamp, and thank you for tuning in on the second day of this live event. My name is Orlando Sardaro from Design8. Design8 has been a SketchUp distributor for more than 20 years now, and I'm happy to host this session for you. If you have watched yesterday, it's possible that, that what I'm going to say is a bit familiar, but if you're tuning in for the first time now, I would like to say welcome to 3D Cloudcamp. 3D Cloudcamp is the online version of our in-person biannual SketchUp end-user event that we've now hosted for 2 times in Eindhoven, the Netherlands. Because of the pandemic, we are hosting it now online. And if you would say that online events are a bit boring and dull, I would totally agree with you. And that's why we're hosting this Cloudcamp as a live television show, and we hope to entertain you because, quite frankly, if I look at myself, I can spend hours on the couch watching television, so why not watch this event live and enjoy it? A few household announcements. We are hosting this event through GoToWebinar. Somewhere on your screen is a small palette with a section for questions. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box and we'll do our best to answer them as quickly as possible. We are live, so we will be able to answer your questions live if that's possible for you. We're hosting 2 sessions today. We've done 2 yesterday. We'll kick off with a session about architecture, and at 10:30 we'll have the last session of today and of this whole Cloudcamp about BIM and SketchUp. We'll finish every session with an interactive and live Kahoot quiz for you to participate and win great prizes. So this session will take about an hour, and we'll finish off with a 10-minute Kahoot with great prizes, and we'll talk about that some more later. But not to overdo our time, let's start with this session about architecture. I'm very happy to announce live in the studio Johannes Roevens from POLO Architects, Loana Arentz from Arentz Studio, and Kees Veth from VMV cad-adviseurs. They're live in the studio now. Johannes, can you introduce yourself briefly?
Yes, hi. I'm Johannes Rubens. I work at POLO Architects and I also run my own small visualization studio. And I'm glad I got the chance to be here, so thank you, Orlando.
Thanks for being here.
You will see more about what I do and how I do it later today, I guess.
For sure. Next to Johannes sits Loana. Loana, can you do a small introduction of yourself?
Yeah, sure. Loana Arentz, nice to meet you. I did a master's in Delft and then I worked for over 10 years for a renowned research institute. There I started developing a fascination for real estate design. So since 2016 I run my own small but progressive architectural design studio at the west of the country in Rocagne. And there we are working on engineering a new approach to architectural design. And that is working out quite nicely.
Thank you. Impressive. Kees, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Kees Veth. I'm the founder of VMV cad-adviseurs. Since the beginning of SketchUp in the Netherlands, we've been a SketchUp dealer now. I've been busy with the combination computers and architects since 1980, so that's 40 years now.
It's quite some time.
Yes, yes. And I've got a lot of hobbies.
And SketchUp is one of them?
SketchUp is certainly one of them.
Okay. Hey people, I've hosted you in Shapes Experience Center. Did any of you already were familiar with Shapes Experience Center?
No.
No?
Mm-hmm. Well,
Okay.
no.
I'll suggest that we'll start a small movie with Suzanne from Astrimex demonstrating this nice building. Ben, take it away.
Welcome in our Shapes Experience Center located at the Woonindustrie in Nieuwegein, the Netherlands. Shapes is an initiative of Red Interior and Astrimex with cooperation of several strategic partners. Together they form the partner for the interior professional in the areas of decorative materials, ceilings, walls and floors. This way we want to support the design process and the choice of materials by showing and advising them from one source, Shapes Experience Center. Shapes brings together more than 20 international brands, independent suppliers and special production companies under one roof. Due to this unique and very broad combination of manufacturers, suppliers and production companies, we can offer optimal support during the design and realization process of interior projects. Direct, custom-made solutions to give your project a unique identity. Don't be limited to standard product solutions. Shapes can help you with 3D milling, acoustic perforation, digital print, customizing ceiling panels in any shape or color, design furniture and more. Shapes can be used in several ways. Get inspired and informed about the numerous possibilities in ceiling, wall, floor and decorative panel material for your interior project by visiting our center or website shapes.nl. In addition to our Experience Center, you can always visit our online channels for inspiration or discuss questions you may have with the Shapes Oracles. We can offer optimal support during the realization and designing process, unburdening during project realization.
It's a fantastic place to be. So thanks Shapes for hosting this event with us. Kees, is this a place you would go to?
It's very nice.
Yeah.
What I've seen, I like the colors and I like the setup. I loved it to enter here.
Yeah, it's the space is open to come here and work even, so don't miss out. Well, I think it's time for our first presentation. Johannes Roevens from POLO Architects in Antwerp and Brussels pre-recorded a fantastic presentation. So I would suggest let's have a look at your link with SketchUp.
Okay, cool.
Hello everybody, I'm Johannes. I work for POLO Architects. And today I'll be talking to you about how we use SketchUp at the office, and it helps us create better buildings like this. But first, we gotta start with a little bit of history. So some of you may know these old icons of SketchUp. So SketchUp was released in the year 2000, and not too much after that. In 2004 I started using SketchUp myself. Well, I'm still young. I was younger then, let's say. So I was 12 years old when I started SketchUp. But why would a 12-year-old start using SketchUp? You know, bit strange. I loved video games. Oh, I love them so much. So I wanted to make or modify existing video games. Yeah, that's me when I was 12. And it was Grand Theft Auto, the game which I was modifying, let's say. But really fast forward, 3 years later, I got my first project. This project was a paid project and I was 15 years old, really excited. And I was like, yes, gonna make that first image and I'm gonna get paid for it. Damn, it was a terrible image. But somehow it wasn't terrible at all because the client was really happy. Don't worry, he didn't pay much. It was like $15 US. And he came back for more than 100 extra projects after that during the next few years, let's say. And then we're gonna stop history like right now because we're gonna move to 14 years later, which is today, where I'm standing here. And that's POLO Architects, where I work during the day, mostly full-time, let's say, and during the evening and weekends, I try to run and manage my own studio. It's a bit difficult, which is Unbuilt Arch, which of course stands for Unbuilt Architecture. But let's talk about POLO Architects. POLO Architects is a pretty big architectural office, of course. We have two offices, one in Brussels and one in Antwerp. I work at the Antwerp branch, let's say, and at POLO Architects we have 130 people working. Unfortunately, we don't have a really up-to-date picture because of COVID reasons, but what's important about those 130 people is that mostly half of them are SketchUp users. When we think about POLO Architects, there's a lot of things we do. We can mostly break them down into 3 pieces. One would be architecture, the other one are urban planning and interiorism. We also have a part of research, but it envelopes all 3 of those. This particular project, I will showcase you how we used SketchUp and how it helped us create a better end result for the client and a better building. Unfortunately, I can't tell you where the project is located. I'm sorry, guys, but you will find out maybe where it's located somewhere on the globe. So research. This project had a really vast, very strong urban landscape, at least for the region there. There was a lot of bright colors to be found on the street with bright patterns, very geometrical. And also we had a very green, very lush environment nearby. So these were key points to how we were going to approach and design the project. But we had a huge problem with this project. Because of this location, there wasn't a lot of data available of where the project would be exactly situated. We had no height plans. We had basically a few pictures, let's say, and the idea of a client. So what we did first to fix this problem was create a context inside of SketchUp. We used a lot of Google Maps, a lot of images that we could find online at least, and together with those 2 combined, we managed to make quite an accurate landscape with all the buildings on the plot and everything on there. This gave us at least a basis to start designing the building. And then we get to the next phase, which is the massing of this building. This was really difficult. I didn't have to work on it. I wasn't involved, so I was a bit happy. My role in this project comes a bit later, but the massing study. So the first the client asked was to design a hotel and offices in 2 different volumes. And I know it's probably pretty small on your screen, but it's just to give you an idea. In the beginning you'll see that we've been experimenting a lot with 2 different volumes, but then the client came back, hey, they want an auditorium there as well. And they changed the hotel completely because the hotel had to be suddenly way bigger than first imagined. So we made a lot of massing studies, and I mean a lot. In the end, there was over 45 massing studies. I'm not going to show them all because it will be really boring, I'm afraid. And then, after the massing was decided, more or less, we were moving up to facades. So the facade studies was really useful to do them in SketchUp. Why? Because this location provided sun 360 degrees around the building, so there was not really a north facade. So we had to experiment a lot with how shadow would cast over the openings, so the building wouldn't become too hot and during summer or the hot months there. Unfortunately, there was no pre-design available back then, because that would have been really useful, I guess, to at least experiment and have this information for the project. After we decided the facade, this is where I came in. Finally, I got to model the project for real. So I modeled the whole plot. I put everything quite in detail in there. Thanks to the model that was created in SketchUp, my colleagues were able to make some collages, some schemes, like the collage I'm showing you now. Unfortunately, we don't have schemes of this building yet, because it was more about creating an image to present the project to the city and to the country, instead of making a building that was fully designed yet. In this presentation, a really important step is also the visualization. Unfortunately, I was like, I built the model, it's fully completed now, I just put a few trees on there, you know, a bit of sunlight, it's gonna look amazing. Yeah, no, I was unfortunately terribly wrong, as you can see. But after a lot of iterations of rendering and improving the image, we came to a final presentation which consisted of 3 images, which this is one of them, and I'll show you the other 3 quickly. With this image, we wanted to create, this, you know, you have the feeling like you're going towards the building, you're going towards the auditorium, maybe to go have a reading at night or something. It's nice and warm out there during the evening. And then this, of course, you have a swimming pool if you're at a hotel, enjoy it, go to the beach bar or well, not beach bar, I mean swimming pool bar. Let's say SketchUp was very essential for this project. Why? We had a lot of back and forth with the client with those messing studies, but also especially with the facades. We made 25 different facades in the end for this project. Well, at least 25 that we showed to the client, let's say. Internally, there were even more. I think the nice thing about SketchUp with this project was that the direct output of SketchUp is presentable to the end client. You don't really have the need to render first or to heavily Photoshop the images before they become presentable. So SketchUp was essential for this one, but we also had a project where SketchUp was irreplaceable. And this project brings us to the urban planning of POLO Architects. I'm just gonna throw something in between. We're not gonna talk about interiorism because one of the colleagues here will have a talk with you about the interiorism. But the urban planning project. Well, the urban planning project, this brings us to Cabo Verde. Cabo Verde, some may or may not know, are volcanic islands of the African coast. They have a really rough, really hard landscape. To work on this kind of landscapes, it's pretty hard. You have to think 3D. There's no way in AutoCAD. Well, yeah, you could with a lot of patience, but I don't think you will get the same end result. You could try to do it in AutoCAD, but SketchUp was really irreplaceable here. Why? We had a topography plan measured on location there, where we created the mountains of course, and then started to place all the small houses on there, on the topography plan. And this way we could see how much ground we had to excavate. We could fine-tune the location of those also together with the sun position for heat performance, etc., etc. It was really, for this project, just there was no substitute, I think, to do it faster and better. And of course, I had to make renders again for this project. And from one step came the other, and in the end we had a constructed project. These are not the lodges that you just saw in the renders. These are the villas who are constructed a bit further away, so private villas. If you Google POLO Architects, you will find them pretty quickly online, these images. So this was the POLO Architects part of my presentation. I'm gonna talk to you just 1 minute about my own studio, Unbuilt Arc. We are a bit unconventional, let's say. We don't specifically make images I mean, we do make images, but we don't just make images. What we mostly do is we help architects. Now, what does that mean? We often notice that a lot of smaller architectural practices or offices have the need for 3D people, but they're not big enough to be able to afford them or include them in their team. And that's where we come in. So sometimes we get a call, hey man, we need a model by tomorrow, or we need an environment quick, can you help us out? And that's where we help. We make the model for them, we send it to them, they can play with it, they can change the window openings, let's say, and they can play back and forth with their end client. And then at some point, of course, it often happens that in the end we also have to make an image. This is just a quick note of all the things that we do. But there's one more thing. Soon, well, not soon, probably in the 4th quarter of this year, I will release also a different service, 3Dlish. 3D-lish, yes, it's even better than push-pull. I'm sorry. I mean, I love push-pull, but this time you might agree when you start using it. We will provide quality or essential 3D models in SketchUp, bundled into categories that will be very useful if you have to generate an environment in, let's say, half a day. You can have your street, your trees, everything will be in it. Instead of testing, trying out different things, making sure it works together, don't worry, we got you covered. It will all just be a seamless way to work. Unfortunately, I cannot show you very much because it's still a work in progress. But thank you all very much for staying with me. Like and subscribe, I guess, or at least follow us all on Instagram. If you have any questions, you can send them now on the live chat, or you can always email me later. Although I'm usually better with SketchUp than with Outlook, but I'll do my best. Thank you.
Well, I'm impressed, Johannes.
Thank
Very
you.
well done. I was wondering about the facades, you know, the many panels. Did you use a specific tool in SketchUp to model these?
Actually, it's pretty straightforward. We mostly used native SketchUp tools for those. Well, it was mostly the architect working on these facades. I helped him out from time to time. But I think the most used tool is still the line and the push-pull for these facades. In the end, they were also pretty simple. But towards the visualization, when we had more elaborate facades, with more detail in it, of course, we started using slightly more plugins, like joint push-pull, for example, or we also make a lot of use of dynamic components that we set up ourselves for the window openings and stuff, so we can slide them bigger or scale the window openings bigger. But the window frame size stays the same, for example.
Cool.
So,
nice.
Yeah.
And I saw some pretty nice renderings. Which rendering engine do you use?
Thanks. I'm a huge fan of V-Ray. I'm a V-Ray user. Well, I think since 1.4, at least in SketchUp. I think 3ds Max was already in version 2 back then. We also start using more Enscape in the office now, okay. But this is mostly the architects who use it to make the same quick tests, these back and forth with the end client. I think Enscape comes in great use there. But if you need the powerhouse, you need good images, we step over to V-Ray.
So for the earlier stages, and the ones who may not be the rendering experts, Enscape suffices, and then for the final beautiful images you would go to V-Ray. Is that the workflow? Is that something you recognize, Loana? Making visualizations differently in several stages of a design?
Yeah, I only go for the best, so V-Ray.
It's always V-Ray.
Yeah,
have you been exploring the real-time visualization possibilities in V-Ray yet?
I've tried it a couple of times because I do a lot of interactive sessions with my clients. But I think it's me that is too impatient to await the result. It's fast, but I see if you offer that amount of detail, the sessions get very long.
Oh, the sessions with your clients?
Yeah, people really like changing colors, textures, structures.
Get into too much details.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. Yeah, I heard you say that, Kees, that it's very important to manage the presentation.
Yeah. Yes. In the beginning, you need. I like the SketchUp presentation because it leaves room to make your own imagination of what it has to be. The rendering are too smooth for presentation in the beginning. At the end, it's perfect, but in the beginning, I like the SketchUp.
Yeah, I think many of us agree with that. 3D-lish, interesting. How do people, because it's not out yet, you mentioned the last quarter of this year, how do people get involved and keep up to date about the project?
Glad you asked. Well, we do have a domain name, but the landing page will be there in, let's say, 2 weeks, so you could already bookmark 3delish.com, or you could also go to our Instagram account, which is, I'm very sorry, but it's also still empty, but also in 2 weeks we will start showing some interesting stuff, let's say. So that's how you could keep up to date, either way, the website or on Instagram.
Okay, good. Loana, can you tell a bit more about your link with SketchUp? How does SketchUp fit in your daily work?
Well, I always have SketchUp with me, always. I always bring my laptop and SketchUp on it, and I use it actually always when I talk to clients, whether it's an introductory a meeting or a meeting in which I present the designs. I always use SketchUp because it's so user-friendly and so fast. If you know how to handle it, it's very easy to transform your ideas into a 3D visual, and that really works.
Okay.
For me, it really works.
Great. I've got an audience question. How do you organize your variations in your design? Do you use one file, or do you use separate files for separate variations?
I always start with a baseline design. If I present to clients, there are always several options. I always have a preferred option and a second preferred option, so I work towards the most preferred option. And I save the other design options in separate files with similar names, like version design 1, A, B, C, D. I always make a copy of that so that if the client asks for some small adaptations, I can edit, and we can always switch back to that.
Okay. And do you use tags also to organize your drawing?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Another question from the audience for Johannes. What's the advantage of Google Maps versus CAD-Mapper? Do you know CAD-Mapper?
I have a notion of CAD-Mapper. I heard of it. I've seen it, I think. And if it is what I think that CAD-Mapper is, let's say, well, I think they are both very useful, but in a different way. With CAD-Mapper, if I'm right, it's to extract the massing of the buildings and the roads, which you have a great plugin for, but it works with OpenStreetMap.
Yeah, Placemaker.
Placemaker, yeah.
Placemaker.
But I think, I think that there's a world where you can use both. So you have the data from CAD-Mapper, and then you have the street view, and not everywhere in the world, but many places by now, the 3D view of Google Maps, which helps when you start to get more into detail. Like, is there a cycling lane? How many lanes are there on that road? You know, this is information you don't always get with CAD-Mapper, I think. Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, let's see. Another question, what are your favorite extensions for creating facades in SketchUp? You mentioned joint push-pull.
Yes, well, if there's a curved facade, like in the images, the building on the back, for example, it was a curved facade, but with a pattern on there. I think we used, first we made the facade fully in 2D, and I made a path of how the building wraps, let's say, or the facade, how the facade wraps around the building. And then we used TrueBend to wrap this facade around this line or curve, let's say. And then we used push-pull, joint push-pull, excuse me, to give it a thickness, of course.
Okay, yeah. Good. Another question. For you, Johannes, how does your typical workflow in a big office look like? Where do you step in? Do you help out with the design as well? testing materials, or do you get a finished design and say, hey, make an image?
Oh, well, since it's such a big office, there's a big variety of work there. Sometimes I'm involved already in a really early stage where I start messing the environment, for example, so the architects can test out different studies or shapes of the building inside this environment, but sometimes I just receive a finished building as well, and they just say, we need renders, voila, render it for us.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. And then I'm like, let's see about this. And do I help with the design? Well, mostly I don't. But sometimes it may happen. It happens that I can make suggestions for materials, or the architects are still working on a building and it's really big, and we have an image from the interior patio, let's say. Sometimes I will start placing benches and some green in there to already give an idea, and then we can get back to feedback and start changing stuff or moving stuff around like this. It's very interactive.
Yeah, is SketchUp the only tool being used for 3D at POLO Architects?
No, so we also use Revit, but this is mostly really for the building permits or the finalized projects, but to test out different to study the building, let's say, we still mostly use SketchUp there, yes.
It's more in the design phase.
In the design phase,
SketchUp.
yes, indeed.
Okay. And Kees, what is your favorite SketchUp tool?
My favorite is I like plain SketchUp. I always promote plain SketchUp.
No extensions.
No changes. I like the stuff as it is, and I can do anything with it. If you know how to. Sometimes the extension make it more easy to do it, but you don't know exactly what's happening sometimes. So I like to take things in hand.
It's a matter of trust also.
No, yeah, maybe. But I make buildings with all the options open. So if I see a building like Johannes just showed us, I see possibilities to make open options with components and stuff like that. So at any time you can make changes.
Okay, and so if we're looking at SketchUp itself, no extensions, what's your favorite tool inside SketchUp?
I think it's paste in place.
Paste in place?
Paste in place,
yeah?
That's my favorite.
Okay, so paste in place is something, an object on your clipboard, and you put it exactly at the same spot that you copied it from, right?
I make a component, and I make an addition, and I draw it against the component on the place I need. Then I say, knip, Control X, and then I open the component and I say paste in place, and it's okay.
True. That's a good
That's the way to go.
Yeah. In some applications, paste in place is sort of the default, but in SketchUp it gets attached to your cursor. You can put it anywhere unless you take that tool. That's true. Yeah. Surprising. Yeah, you made your own shortcuts.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there something that you do, Loana? That you make your own templates, shortcuts, your workflow, or do you just go with the standards?
The more you work with SketchUp, the more you develop your own workflow. I really can't go without tags.
Tags?
Never. No, tags are really valuable and components. So you can fly through the building, you can experience spaces, you can open up the building. It's really valuable to me.
The tags combined with scenes?
Yeah, a lot of scenes as well, yeah.
Okay. Another question. For the panel, how and where do you organize your library of objects? Yeah, so we heard Johannes talking about 3D-lish, sort of the push-pull of libraries.
Yes.
Is that something that you fancy? That you say, hey, well, that could be interesting. So sort of theme-like objects.
Yeah.
And do you use objects in a library? How do you organize them, Loana?
Yeah, I'm still searching for an optimal approach there. What I do now is I save per project. I have a warehouse with objects. I have a library with materials and locally within the project file, because the location keeps on changing with every update. So then I know definitely where to find it if I need it. But sometimes I thought, oh, which project it is, so it can be optimized a bit further.
Kees, do you use object library?
I use, of course, I use object libraries, but I put it on a place I want. In preferences on file locations, I managed to set my components on a place, and when I get a new version of SketchUp, he takes it over immediately, and I never have to search for the components again.
Okay.
It's really nice.
Okay. I think it's time almost for our tool movie. We have 10 minutes of a movie about pre-design. And Johannes took us to beautiful places, Cabo Verde, far away. And since this is online anyway, I might as well take you to Romania via London, because Andrew Corney from Trimble will introduce pre-design to you. So let's have a look.
Hi, my name's Andrew Corney and I'm Product Manager at SketchUp for Sapphira and pre-design. And today I was hoping to talk to you about pre-design, which is a new application that we have as part of our SketchUp Pro and SketchUp Studio bundles. Pre-design is a tool that helps you look at the climate and understand how it might affect a new extension, renovation, new building, or outside space project. So if you're an architect or someone who's doing a renovation yourself, or a design build contractor, or perhaps even a landscape architect, pre-design is a way to get a bit of information at the very beginning of a project about the climate and how that climate might affect your design, so that you can have good conversations with the other people in your design team around informing your design based on some really good analysis of the climate. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at one of the demonstration studies that comes with pre-design. We'll walk through the product and I'll talk about how you can use the product to get value and collaborate with your team members as you're using it. So the first project we're going to look at is called Devops HQ, which is in Suceava, Romania. Now, why did we choose this? Well, it happens that our development team is actually in Romania and in Suceava, so we thought it would be a nice tribute to all their hard work to include this as one of the development projects. But you could imagine being someone who's about to start a project in Suceava. Perhaps you've never been there. Perhaps you're working with a new client who works there, and you need to have a conversation about how the climate is going to affect your design. Well, pre-design gets you off on a starting point by summarizing the climate in very simple ways that are really easy for you to remember and to talk about with someone who may not have any knowledge about building physics at all. So here we can see that Suceava is a warm, humid continental climate, and it's got distinct seasons with cold, snowy winters and warm, humid summers. The seasons are characterized here with average, maximum, minimum temperatures, level of cloudiness, wind speeds and direction, and a little bit of a graphic to help you as well. Now, the reason why this is useful is that if you're not used to talking about climate to anyone, or even thinking about climate yourself as part of the design process, this just helps reorient you in terms of what the climate's really like, and statistically what tends to happen in this part of the world. And we can see here, for example, in Suceava, that we've got very cold winters and beautiful summers, and something a little bit in between in spring and autumn. Now, obviously it's great to talk about the weather, but what you really want to do is then take that information and be able to turn that into something architectural, some sort of architectural storytelling, some sort of architectural narrative that you can use then to hang your design off. So what we do in pre-design is we take that information and now we think about it in a different way. How is someone going to experience a building in this climate in different ways at different times of the year? And we categorize this in sort of sense of how does someone feel as they approach that building and what would then the building need to do to respond to that person appropriately. So we've all just come out of big winter here, and I know that in wintertime, if I go out for a walk, when I see a building, I'm looking for that building to provide shelter from the cold. I want to feel like that building is presented to me in a way that's going to provide comfort and offer some sort of warmth and security for me. What does that translate into architecture? Well, that could translate into doing things like good glazing and insulation, perhaps not having a building that has lots of elements around the facade that could be causes for heat to leak out, and perhaps even having comfortable heating systems. Of course, what's interesting in Suceava is, like we said, it's a continental climate. It's got a warm summer and a cool winter, cold winter. So during the summertime, there's a good proportion of time that people want to be outside. And you should consider this as part of your own design narrative. How does that affect your building? Well, perhaps because people want to be outside, they might want a way for that building to be partly open so that you have good openings, good connections, perhaps shaded areas, outside spaces, so people can use a building perhaps differently in the summertime. So this gives you a way now to have a discussion either with your partner, with your design team, to sort of like say, okay, here are the big implications of climate for my project that I'm looking at. Now, the next thing, one of the things that people always talk about when it comes to a building or even a renovation design is how much glass should I have? And, you know, we all know window taxes happened in the 18th and 17th century. Windows let out a lot of heat and let in a lot of heat as well. So, so the amount of glass that you have on a building is going to directly impact the performance of that building and comfort and the energy efficiency of that building. So what we try to do is we try to look at each orientation and say, okay, well, you could have heat loss, you could have heat coming in. What are the big drivers for each orientation in your project? And you can see me flicking different orientations here. And then how does that affect how much glass you might want to consider having on the building? Here on the south facade, you know, if you followed typical code compliance strategies in Suceava, you'd probably be looking at having about 35% glass on the facade. But what this now tells you is if you went down the path of taking on or budgeting for quite high-end improvements to the sort of materials that you would use on your design, it could be realistic to have the same sort of performance with 60% glass. So this immediately now starts to tell me how much of a trade-off would I have having more glass, what kind of things would we need to budget for, and have that conversation with the owner. So what I've done down here is I've applied some filters to see how different types of glazing or different types of frame are going to affect how much glass I can have. And then you can see here that actually it's the framing that's doing a lot of the work. A non-metal frame with double glazing is actually even better than having a triple glaze system with a broken metal frame in terms of how much glazing I can have. And this score is really useful as well because it gives you a nice sense of how good these options are relative to each other. Even if you don't think about it in terms of glazing ratio, it's a good way to see how much of a benefit you could get by adopting different processes. Now, we talked about being in a place where there is quite a warm summer, and what you can see here on the south facade of the building on the sun path diagram is that we've colored that sun path diagram based on whether the sun is something we should block, i.e. it's detrimental, it's going to add heat at a time we're already cooling the building, or beneficial, it's going to warm the building up when we're actually warming the building up as well. And what this section does then is provide a recommendation, again, a really simple recommendation by facade as to how much shading might be needed, depending on which orientation we're looking at. And then gives a bit of a suite of options that you can look at and see, well, how much of that bad sun is blocked and how much of the good sun is blocked and how's that going to work for me? So here I'm looking at double overhang. I've got an overhang that's blocking most of the bad sun and not the good sun. So that's potentially a really nice outcome for my project. Gives me something to work for from aesthetically in terms of like what kind of things should I account for as I start to work up my massing in SketchUp. A lot of people forget though, you know, with a building that there are lots of different ways to bring light in. We wanted to remind in this application that top lighting can often be a really nice way to bring light into a building. But different climates have different considerations for top lighting. So this breaks that climate up into simple categories of whether it's sunny or cloudy or a bit of both, and then uses that information to provide some strategies that you can use or you can consider to apply top lighting to the building. Finally, there's an outside spaces section. This is, we found, really useful for design build contractors in particular, who are trying to understand with their client what the scope of the project should be. This gives a suite of options and ranks their effectiveness in terms of improving the usefulness of outside space, and then maps over the course of the year how often that outside space is likely to be useful with and without the addition of those interventions. So you can see here that you still have quite a lot of time, even in the summertime here, where that outside space might not be useful. But if we added some key improvements to that building design, then we could potentially be looking to use the outside space in Suceava all through the summertime. And that's a really nice feature to have. So there you go. That's pre-design in a nutshell. So again, if you're an architect, design build contractor, potentially landscape designer, or if you're doing your own project, it's going to be a really great way to help you get a bit of information before you start building in SketchUp and get ahead on your project, get aligned with your design team. So thanks for listening today, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Pretty impressive pre-design. Johannes, you've done projects far away. Is the pre-design something that could have helped in the beginning to gain the information about the climate?
I definitely think so. It's something, now that I saw it, I think we should definitely look further into how to use it and how to scale it maybe to the office as well. Especially during those early design stages, like you say, this can be a very helpful tool in how to make the building and the exterior environment around it perform better. Yeah,
especially the building with the sun all around. I could imagine that it's very valuable to get the feedback about the heating and the cooling.
Yeah, exactly.
Loana, I know that you have been involved in some environmentally friendly projects. Would you say that climate is becoming a more and more important item in a building design?
Definitely, yes. Yeah, it's one of the leading variables that you should take into account in your architectural design. It determines the orientation of a building, the envelope of the building, the shaping of the envelope. It determines the heating, cooling, and ventilation system you incorporate. So, yeah, as we are trying to fight climate change, I think architectural design can definitely do a good thing for climate change.
Mm-hmm. Reducing energy consumption in the building.
Yeah, zero energy, net zero energy buildings will be state of the art, definitely.
Yeah, we had an example in our pre-design webinar the other day about a facade was totally made out of glass. It was southward orientated, and inside were machines, consuming high volumes of energy to cool the room. So. Yeah, we should definitely take it into account. I agree with you.
Also globally, where your building is located, what is in the surroundings, is there shade from trees, other buildings, what is the use of the building, also during the day, at night, very important parameters that you can definitely optimize if you take it into account in your design process.
Kees, you've been around for a while in architecture. Have you seen any important changes in the way climate is incorporated in architectural design?
Definitely. Yeah, you can do architecture without it nowadays. I've always must have a story about the energy of a building. But I think the pre-design for your own country, it should be common knowledge for architects, but it's very nice if you have to build outside in foreign countries.
Yeah,
you can find. And the other thing, you can tell a story about it, but you can make with pre-design. You have a document to prove it, and that's very nice.
Yeah, you mentioned storytelling. I think storytelling is one of the main goals of pre-design.
Yeah.
To convince your clients that a certain emphasis should be placed on the building design.
I didn't
think
think
it goes
about
further.
it. I can prove it.
It goes further than energy only. I think climate change also makes that, for instance, in our little country in the Netherlands, if it rains, it can rain more heavily than it used to. And if it's dry, it stays dry more longer. So you can also incorporate in your architectural design a way to keep the water, to maintain it, and then to let it go during periods of drought. And you can do more like that, so it goes much further than only, if it's hot, it gets really hot now. We didn't see that, it got 40 degrees C last summer, and the summer before. If it gets cold, it gets really cold, so the extremes are getting more extreme.
Yeah, I think we had frost this night.
Yeah, definitely yes.
And in Belgium, did it reach 40 degrees Celsius this summer?
Yes, definitely. And
in Antwerp.
More in the south, right?
Sweating in Antwerp. And Antwerp, Azur, I say sometimes then if it's really warm. But yeah, I think it's important as well, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I hope that with pre-design inside of SketchUp that it's easier for us to have this information for our decisions. Kees, I would just like to ask you, knowing SketchUp, using SketchUp, seeing the developments in SketchUp like pre-design, would you think SketchUp, is the world a better place with SketchUp or without SketchUp?
I think a better world is made by human beings, but they've got the right tools to make images of what they imagine. That's the power of SketchUp, to do that very fast and very likable.
Yeah, I always say, if I need to tell what SketchUp is in one word, I have a word. Do you have one word for SketchUp if you would need to describe it?
Well, it's a brand name. I call it the Fisher Prize of 3D. It's very simple, it's very powerful, and very playful.
Fisher Prize of 3D.
To work with, yeah.
That's nice. And you, Loana?
Yeah, one word's difficult because I would like to add 3D, but it's 3D visualizer, something like that comes to my mind now.
Yeah, I would say communication, as a communication tool.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Question from the audience. Johannes, working with other architectural firms, how do you cooperate with them? Do you exchange files or do you work in the cloud?
Yes, well, we usually manage a Dropbox with our, if depends on the project, of course. So if it's just simply a visualization job, of course, we're not going to be sharing files. If it's a 3D job where we have to make a 3D model, then yes, we do share the files. We don't share our render setups or render settings inside the materials, though. This is something I'm very stressed about always.
Yeah.
These things I keep to myself, because otherwise I start making models for other people, and they get for free all my render settings, all my materials, which I in the end as well paid for oftentimes. So, but
true.
Yeah.
True, that's true. I haven't thought about that, but that's true.
Yeah.
So you remove the materials, or?
Well, no, the materials will still be in the model as a low resolution texture, but all the V-Ray data that's behind the material, like the high resolution textures, the bump, whatsoever, or the scatter data for the grass and the trees, that's gone, that's out of the file.
Okay, interesting. Another question. For all of you, what training have you followed or have you learned more in practice? It's a question from Anja. Thanks, Anja. Okay, so you want to start? How did you get trained on SketchUp?
It was 2004. And
17 years ago.
I saw the guys from At Last in Amsterdam. I was with you in Amsterdam, and seeing them busy make my hands itch. I want to do it myself, and I learned it myself.
You learned it yourself?
Yeah, everything.
And did you use a book or movies or?
No, only experience.
So just experimenting, clicking, trying.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. You do trainings yourself?
I'm an authorized trainer. Still.
SketchUp authorized trainer.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I trained a lot of people.
Good, good. You, Loana? How did you get trained?
Well, with SketchUp, that was really funny. That was like 11 years ago. I was still working for the Research Institute, and I was about to buy this really beautiful dream house farm, but it was really old. It was built in 1830, and you could really see that.
Wow.
And then we were planning this holiday to the Far East, and I brought my laptop. I installed SketchUp. It was still freeware then, if I remember correctly. I bought some manual SketchUp for Dummies, or I downloaded it somewhere. And I brought my maps, with the sizes and the measures. And in the plane, I started playing around with it. And then I could throw away the manual quite fast, because it was actually really easy to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And by the end of the holiday, we had a really nice design. So during the holiday, we played some bits, and we bought the house.
Oh, nice.
And it came from there. That's where it started. And it's a really easy to handle tool.
And no professional training after that?
No professional training. For the rendering software, I did some professional trainings online, but also live trainings, because that had some more depth in it, and to really improve the renders I needed some additional info. There are also some good books now, but yeah, for the rendering it was really useful to do some additional trainings.
True. Well, Johannes, we know about you, right?
I guess so. Well, I learned it by like Kees clicking buttons.
Yeah.
And seeing which button does what, no? But no books, there was no YouTube, or maybe there was when I started, but not really tutorials. It was mostly those the funny videos back then. So yeah, just learned everything by time and by clicking around.
And the nice thing with SketchUp, I think, is every time you want to do something and you cannot find the options in the main package, you just Google it, and there's always some kind of plugin that will do the job. So I've never been disappointed in that field.
Yeah. Well, there are more than 40 million people around the world using SketchUp, so there's a vast community. Yeah. Where you can ask questions, stuff is being developed, so it's a very lively ecosystem to be in.
Yeah, very valuable.
Yeah. Another question, are the models that you create BIM ready? Who would like to answer that? Next session is about BIM, but you may stick around.
Yeah. You can only make it BIM when you make it BIM. You have to build the model like it's a really building, and then you can add tags on it. For this is a wall. This is.
Do you do that? Do you add that information in your design?
Yeah, I do it sometimes.
Yeah. You, Loana? No, just SketchUp design.
Yeah, if the projects grow bigger, this is one of the questions you get very often. But honestly, I know it's the future, but it doesn't really have my interest. So maybe in the future I can hire some nice BIM guy for that.
Well, stick around. We'll have Nick and Kenny next hour. And you, do you create BIM ready models?
I follow Loana on this. I don't make BIM ready models. Also not my ambition to do it. It's more to help during the design phase and to create images. Yeah.
But it's a needed and very nice development, of course.
Okay. Okay, I think we're done for this session about architecture. There's one thing left, and that is the Kahoot Quiz. So I would really like to ask you all to participate. We're going to do a live quiz now. 5 questions about this hour, and you can win fantastic prizes. If you enter the quiz, go to kahoot.it and enter the pin I'm going to give you, but you need to register with your name. Please put your real name in there, because if you win, we need to know who to give the prize to, right? And the prize is, the number 1 will win a 1-year license of V-Ray for SketchUp. The number 2 will win a 1-year license for SketchUp Pro subscription. And the number 3 will win an extension to SketchUp, Sculpt, to create your sections in your documentations, nice with hatches, etc. And, not to forget, you will also get a nice goodie bag. So I'll have also one goodie bag for you. There's the personalized mug for every one of you to keep, and also for the winners in the quiz. There's the SketchUp hat. There's of course the thingy, the mask, and hopefully we can use it soon. SketchUp sunglasses. So there's lots in there, and oh, I cannot forget to mention, of course, chocolate. Who can live without chocolate, right? Can you live without chocolate, Kees? No. Okay, let's start. I'll open up my my screen and loading the pin. So go to kahoot.it on any device, on your smartphone or a web browser with internet is enough. And go to kahoot.it and enter the pin 3892364. Okay. And we're already seeing some people join. Don't be afraid. I'll ask 5 questions and you'll be able to give the answer on your phone or on the screen, pushing the right button. Okay, so 30 is 31. Cock entered. And I would say let's start. 35 now. Hurry, hurry, join. I'm sorry, but I have to start at some point, so let's go for it. Okay, so this is the architecture Kahoot. Let's go. Who was SketchUp initially designed for? Was it for interior designers, architects 50 years old or older, architects just leaving school, or university teachers? You'll see the time, 5 seconds. And it's not only about the right answer, it's also about giving the right answer fast. Okay, so 20 people were thinking it is designed for interior designers, but actually it's designed for the architect of over 50 years. So almost, Kees, almost for you. Yeah, it's really true. So let's see the leaderboard. Okay, Bobbetje with nearly 700 points, leading the leading board. So it's not only about giving the right answer, it's also giving the right answer fast, so you can get up higher on the leaderboard. So let's go to the second question. It's a quiz. What is pre-design? What is pre-design? There's only one answer, the correct one. Is it a part of SketchUp Pro subscription that you use separately? Is it a smart tool in SketchUp that creates a concept for you? Is it part of SketchUp Classic that you use separately? Or is it something that you can buy as an add-on to SketchUp? Of course, it's a part of SketchUp Pro subscription that you use separately as design input. Okay, so let's see what the leaderboard does. How is Bobbetje going? Bobbetje is going well. Very well done, Bobbetje. Erik and Michael Middle are approaching. So let's move on to the third question now. It's a multi-select, so you can give more answers. In what project stages does POLO Architects use SketchUp Pro? In the definitive design, in the concept generation, preliminary design, documentation. And more the right answers. Yeah, and it's a preliminary design and concept generation, right? The majority had concept generation at least well. So let's see the leaderboard. Oh, Bobbetje dropped off. Maybe he or she missed. Eric is now leading the leaderboard, only 200 points in front of Mao, and Casper is the third place. So let's go to the last question. You get double points for this question, double points, people. What age did Johannes start working in SketchUp? Was he 16 years old, 12, 6 or 36? There's only one correct answer. It was 12, right?
Yes,
yeah.
correct.
We had it right. So let's see what the leaderboard does. Okay, Eric stayed on top. And Mao still second and Casper, so not much change there. We're going to the final question, so let's see what that does. It's a quiz question. What is Shape's Experience Center? I hope you paid attention. Is the Fab Lab for 3D printing? Is the supplier showroom? Is it a gym where you can get in shape? Or is it a shop where you can buy cheap materials? Only one answer, the correct one, and I'm really excited to see what the leaderboard does. So the correct answer, indeed, a supplier showroom for different interior materials and products. Majority had it right, but what does the leaderboard do? Let's have a look at the podium. Nick, you're number 3rd. Casper, number 2. And Eric, back again. Congratulations, Eric, you won a 1-year license of V-Ray. If you already had a license, you get an extra year, of course. Same goes for Casper, number 2, but then for SketchUp Pro. And Nick Pauw also get a license of Sculpt. And of course, all a goodie bag for you. I also have the goodie bag for you. I will give it now to you.
Thank you.
And for the rest, I'll give you later. So I want to thank you very, very much for coming and contributing to our 3D Cloudcamp. Yeah, stay healthy, stay SketchUpping.
Voila.
And you at home, thank you for watching. I hope you stay tuned. At 10:30 we'll go into the final session of this 3D Cloudcamp. It will be about BIM, and we'll do a Kahoot again for winning great prizes. So make sure you stay tuned. See you soon.